Welcome back to Bite-Size Colts. I am Kev, and let's quickly take a look at this week's Texans Colts game. Week 2 is the beginning of a new rivalry, C.J. Stroud versus Anthony Richardson, and luckily, so far so good. It looks like C.J. Stroud is going to play. He was questionable with a right shoulder injury. Over on the PSF app yesterday when we were on a Texans stream, we speculated as to whether the state of the Texans O-line might not keep CJ on the injury report today, and we might have a Davis Mills sighting. But it looks like the Texans are going to go with him. They are going to play CJ Stroud. So we are going to have the first matchup ever of these two rookies. I believe it's also the first matchup of any rookies this year. But before we dive right into that, let's talk briefly about last week, all right? Colts versus Jags, 3.5 quarters, maybe 3.25 quarters of wonderful football from the Colts, all things considered. Anthony Richardson missed on a couple of throws high, on one of them at least, to Ogletree. The defender got to him, closed in on him quickly. He couldn't quite follow through with it. But it was a good read. He made the right progression. His first guy wasn't there, went to the second option, just didn't have quite enough time, which was really the name of the game for the Colts offensively in week 1. Anthony Richardson didn't have a lot of time, and therefore we didn't really see any deep passes. So offensively, I hope the passing game opens up a little bit. Luckily, Michael Pittman went off with the big screen pass. I believe it was 39 yards to the house. We had a good day from Josh Downs. Alec Pierce was nowhere to be found. Unfortunately, I think some of that might have had to do with the fact that we weren't able to push the ball downfield. But we really need to see something from him here in week 2. But we'll talk about that soon with the keys of the game. Deion Jackson, not only did he have the 2 fumbles, but his yards per carry was not great. I expect to see a little bit of improvement with Zach Moss coming in week 2. But we will still have to rely a little bit on Deion, and hopefully he bounces back. I still have some faith in him. Around the Twitter water cooler, it seems like I may be the only one, but let's hold out hope. We've seen flashes of Deion. He's a hard runner. Let's see if he can shake off last week and contribute a little bit to the game offensively. Defensively, the Colts front line looked good. I mean, Buckner, Stewart, we got pressure pretty early and pretty often. Kwity Paye looked good. Trevor Lawrence just unfortunately had a couple of great throws while rolling to his left and was able to buy a little more time. And when you do that against this depleted Colts secondary, you're going to have some options down the field. And Calvin Ridley ate. Zay Jones played pretty well as well. So the Jaguars inevitably pulled away in the fourth quarter, kind of what we expected. To be honest with you, I was happier about this Colts game than anything. I thought the offense looked good. Of course, we had the somewhat lucky strip sack fumble play that led to a touchdown that kept things level there for a while. But hey, you're going to have that throughout the season, and the Colts defense is going to need to be opportunistic to continue to be in games. The linebacker core looked great. Zaire Franklin, to me, is showing that last year wasn't a fluke. Obviously, he needs to do it for more than 1 week, but fingers crossed so far. Didn't see much from Shaq, but that's okay. I'm assuming he's on a snap count, and maybe we'll see a little bit more of him this week. EJ Speed looked very good, though. So no Juju Brents last week. I don't believe Jones played either. So hopefully the Colts secondary will shore things up a little bit here in week 2, because week 1 it was bad. We kind of thought it would be. Knew that the Jaguars passing attack would kind of have its way, except for the plays when the Colts were able to get to the quarterback. And that is how it went. So overall, happy with AR's play. He did have one pretty bad interception, but you're going to have that as rookie. It's about learning from those. As long as we don't see that same mistake repeated time and time again, we're going to be okay. Let's not forget that one Peyton Manning still holds the record, I believe, for most interceptions in a rookie season. So it's okay to make those mistakes. At least we're trying, we're pushing the ball when we can. That's one thing. I'll take another mistake or two to see us actually push the ball downfield. But let's dive right into our week 2 preview. Our keys to the game will be coming soon. But looking at this right now, it does look like Tunsil may not be playing. Stroud is going to play. So right now, I feel good. We talked about it again on the Texans stream yesterday on the Pro Sports Fans app. Check that out. Be sure to follow us. Join us for the live stream. I will be covering the Colts Texans game all game long with my main men, Justin and Boom. And I do believe Silu, the Horseshoe Pride crew, we are going to be there. At least some of us will be there. We've yet to get the whole group together. So subscribe, look out for that. But I think that both the Texans and Colts fans come into this game feeling good. This feels like a game we can win. Both teams, as I said on that stream, feel like they're at about the same place. They're both in a rebuild. Both have some players that are maybe of a higher quality than a rebuild, like Tunsil. And then, of course, we've got Buckner on the Colts end. We've got a few players, and that's not, there are more names than that, especially on the Colts ends that I can name that are players that you wouldn't think of as being part of a rebuild. So, both teams have maybe these high hopes that with a rookie quarterback, if that rookie quarterback can turn a corner early, maybe they'll win a few more games than expected this year and be in the hunt for a wild card spot next season. Let me be clear, next season. But it's an exciting time because even though both teams are bad, you have your quarterback of the future, and then you get to see them play against each other. So I think Colts fans will all be predicting a win here, and Texans fans also, I think, will be predicting a win here. I think it's a great start to what will be sort of a renewed rivalry because the Colts and Texans have never really been on the same trajectory at the same time. Only a couple of years throughout the AFC South history have both teams been good. And then there have been times, even when the Texans were good, that somehow a bad Colts team would beat them. But the times, they are a-changing. I will give you my score prediction at the end here, but let's go into the keys of the game. Now, Colts fans, bear with me. We're actually going to do the Texans' keys to the game first. Now, first and foremost, one Mr. Dameon Pierce needs to touch the ball more than 11 times for the Texans. All right. They have a good running back there. He's, in my opinion, until we get to tap into CJ Stroud's potential and maybe Tank's potential as well. Right now, Dameon Pierce is the best skill player on that offensive unit. He needs to touch the ball more. They need to give him more than 11 carries. And based on what I saw from the Colts defense last week, ETN was able to bounce off some tackles. And there were times, not really known as a north-south, right up the gut guy. And ETN had some carries where he wasn't touched for 3 to 4 yards and would manage to get 6 or 7 yards after spinning out of one tackle. So if I'm Houston, I'm running it early and often. Also, with the injuries to their offensive line, I think that's going to help them out a little bit there too. And then defensively, they are going to need to contain Anthony Richardson because I think with their injured, they have a safety that's out. So they have an injury in the defensive backfield, which could allow the Colts to push the ball the way we talked about earlier in the show that they need to. So in order to keep plays from breaking down and to have your DBs in coverage longer, they're really going to need to get to Anthony Richardson soon. They're going to need to keep contained so he can extend plays and take advantage of broken coverages down the field. And the Texans defense did play well. To their credit, they kept Lamar Jackson contained relatively well. So I think they will be up for the task. We'll see what the Colts are able to do as far as play calling to keep the Texans off balance. So let's go into the Colts' key to the game. Now we'll start again on offense, and we just talked about what the Texans will have to do defensively. So let's counter that the Colts will need to run the ball more efficiently. I certainly probably a few more carries than last week, but they have to do it better. Even if the carries are the same, they got to get more out of them. And Zach Moss, I assume now that he's healthy, will give us a little bit of a bump there. Maybe also having Jake Funk in the rotation will allow Deion Jackson to open things up a little bit with his now what I assume will be more limited carries. So it can only go up from last week. But what the Colts need to do, they're going to continue to run these RPOs. They're going to continue to run screens. We saw it work last week. I love it. We're going to continue to see more of it. RPO, zone RPO with the tight end. Granson's out this week, so maybe it'll be Ogletree running the drag route. So whichever side, if they don't end up giving it to Moss, that tight end's going to leak across the field. Allow Richardson then to roll out. The Texans folks we spoke to yesterday thought that maybe Anthony Richardson, I can't remember who it was, sorry to quote them directly, but thought that Richardson might lead the team in rushing yards. So I hope for the Colts' sake that that's not the case, but that does go back to what we've talked about for the Colts' keys to the season offensively. People have to take that RPO seriously. They have to try to think that Anthony Richardson's a threat. And early on, I think that is amplified. I mean, it'll if he continues to make big runs, then it will of course go up. But right now, it's a known weapon. It's a known part of his arsenal. And I think defensive coordinators are probably more afraid of Anthony Richardson's legs than what he's going to do in the air. So I think the Texans will be keyed in on this, but it's going to be very important because that's what I think is going to open up the passing game. Like we talked about, what the Texans need to not have happen is exactly what the Colts want to do. Run these RPOs, get these screens going early, and then have some plays that you can set up longer, take some shots down the field, have these RPOs where if the contain goes in, and now Anthony Richardson, who did a great job last week, I thought, of pulling the ball at the last second. I think he's doing a wonderful job with those read options. And if he's able to keep it to the last second, pull it out, and then have somebody leaking in the flat that's open, but also now have Pierce or Pittman or down, somebody running a deep ball, and with the injured safety, maybe they're able to take the top off the defense. So those are the keys to the game on offense. Defensively, it's pressure, pressure, pressure. The Colts defense really has got to get to CJ Stroud early. They are also going to call a lot of screen passes, by the way. So we're going to look out for that. But the way this defensive backfield looks for the Colts, and maybe it'll be a lot better with Juju Brents in today, but the way things have looked so far, the only way the defense is going to have a chance is to be opportunistic, to create turnovers. And the best way to create turnovers is to get pressure on a quarterback, especially a rookie quarterback who did show some signs last week that if you get to him, he can be rattled. He's still figuring things out, rightfully so. It's not a knock against CJ by any means. But Buckner, Grover, maybe even some of the linebackers, Quiddy, they have got to get to the quarterback early and often. And then we got to hope that Zaire and Shaq and EJ can keep things clean in front of them. And maybe even one of them will be the ones to force the turnover. We did see some of that opportunistic defense last week with that great forced fumble that unfortunately went out of bounds. You know, the Colts almost had a huge turnover on that play. So if we can see a little bit of that, and credit to the Colts defense, last week reminded me a lot of a game from last year, unfortunately, except with a little more offense, a little more excitement, where the defense hung tough, and continued to make plays, and then just kind of ran out of gas there in the fourth quarter. So the keys to the game for the Colts defense will be to get that pressure, force those turnovers. So here we go. The week 2 score prediction. You can see it in my eyes. You can see it underneath my name right there on the screen. Of course, I believe that the Colts are going to win. Yesterday, on the stream, I predicted 24-21 Colts, so I want to be transparent there. I wonder now as we get closer to game time, I'm getting a little more nervous. I might want to go back to my original 1917 Colts, but I'm going to hold out on hope, okay, that we're going to get some more offense today than we're used to, and it might be a big turnover. One of these quarterbacks or both might have a pick six in the mix or a turnover that leads to a quick touchdown. So let's actually go the other way and say 27-24 Colts. They finally put their high-paid kicker to use. There you have it, folks. We're getting the dub. There we go, boys. Colts victory. Let's celebrate. Let's drink. And don't forget, check me out on the Pro Sports Fans app, on the Horseshoe Pride podcast. We have recap shows on Tuesday. Occasionally we have previews on Friday. Those are also on our YouTube channel, so go subscribe to Horseshoe Pride there. And, of course, game day streams. So if you're watching the Texans Colts game and you want our commentary, you want our play-by-play, go download the app right now for Apple and Android. And I will look forward to seeing you there. And, of course, please subscribe to Bite-Size Sports. Give us a like, share with your friends. We have Vikings podcast, we have Steelers podcast, we have a Bears podcast, we have a Titans podcast. I know. We have a Giants podcast coming. We have a Raiders podcast coming. We also have Necessary Roughness every Tuesday night where we talk about the biggest stories in all of the NFL with 4 quality content creators. So go check that out. We also have a Monday night gambling show coming. We also have our late Monday night wrestling program, Markomania. We got Rumbles of Red on Friday for all your fantasy needs, as well as another damn fantasy podcast on Wednesdays. And then you can chat hoops with me, James, and Keebler on The Bounce Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Folks, all of that content, plus our comedy shorts and our bonus streams, how could you not want that? There's one thing we can promise you: we will deliver you a constant flow of bite-sized sports. That's sports content with a bite that most of the time is nice and easy to consume. So thank you all so much. If you're still here, we'll see you next time. Take care.